Folks, Rob from Edgebit here. Today I want to talk you through our new open source project called Enclaver. Enclaver is a tool to build, test, and run secure enclaves. And architecturally what's really interesting about it is it's designed to feel like using a container. So there's a build and a run step, and in fact we use containers behind the scenes. But on that run step, instead of just running the container, we actually bootstrap a new secure enclave. And a secure enclave is a really isolated set of a server, in this case an EC2 machine, and we're going to look at a Nitro Enclave. And it's extremely isolated by design. So it's got a dedicated set of CPUs, so you're protected against speculative execution attacks. It's got a contiguous encrypted set of memory. And then the machine that's running doesn't really look like anything you're used to. There's no shell access, there's no disk, there's very limited networking. And what this means is that data you put inside the enclave or processing that you're doing inside of the enclave is not going to get out, it's not going to get leaked, it can't be observed. And this is perfect for any sensitive part of your application. You can think things like encryption, but also protecting intellectual property that you don't want to be leaked. And so we're going to talk through an example of this. Now, let's compare and contrast this to the traditional kind of boundary of an EC2 machine where you have a firewall and you might have like a compromised network. That firewall is helping protect that EC2 machine, but it is possible to penetrate. It's possible that it's misconfigured. And so if you have a compromised parent, the secure enclave is so isolated and so protected that even that can't be attacked. They can't observe what's happening inside the enclave. They can't read its memory. They can't get data out of it. And so it's a really powerful primitive for building sensitive parts of your application. So let's take a look at what it looks like to run Enclaver itself. On our machine here, we are running Enclaver version 0.1.0. This is the first one that we put out, and we got build and run steps, and we're going to look at both of those. But first, let's look at an Enclave manifest file. So here we're specifying that we have a source application here. This is a container image, and then a target. That's what we're going to output. And then we've got defaults here, and then a set of egress policies. We want to be really controlled about data leaving. And then we've got port 8001 that we're going to listen on. So we're going to take this manifest and we're going to build it. And here we're pulling down our source application container and putting that into an enclave image. Now at the end of this, you're going to see that these things called measurements are output. This is a cryptographic identity of this specific code, of this specific image. And this is really powerful because it can't be spoofed, it can't be stolen. This is related to the code itself. And we can use that as a gating mechanism for either secrets that are allowed to be accessed by this enclave image or knowing that it's actually running the trusted code that we want it to be. So now that we've got that, let's run it. And we're going to listen on port 8001. And I'm actually going to use one that came out of our CI system here because that cryptographic identity is a little bit different. And so we're going to start the enclave, and here you can see that we are listening on 8001 and we're streaming some logs back. And so this is what we have to go look and see what a request looks like as it comes through this application. But before we do that, I want to tell you about this application itself. So we're going to run a no-fly list. And if you're familiar with flying in the United States, there's a list of folks that aren't allowed to fly, and this is enforced by both the government and the airlines. And so we've got an encrypted list and an encryption key, and what we're going to do is stick that list, this is the people that can't fly, this is very secret, into our enclave. And then also we're going to get our encryption key so that we can decrypt that list. Now you'll see that there's kind of this box around the arrow here, and what that represents is an access policy for this key, and it's tied to the cryptographic identity of the code. And so the government has vetted that this code doesn't leak the list that they're about to give us, and we can feel really good about that because of the protections of the enclave. So once we have both of those inside of the enclave, we can decrypt our list and we have our plain text. Now we're ready to start processing requests. These are going to be passenger names that are put in, and then we're going to see if they can fly. And remember, because of the enclave, we're protected against a parent host getting compromised. So if some airline's infrastructure gets attacked, they're still not going to be able to get this list. They're not going to be able to steal the encryption key. And that's really, really powerful. So let's take a look and see what a request coming into our enclave looks like. So what we're going to do is put in a passenger name, and then we're going to return either a true or false. And remember, this is that vetted code that knows it's not going to return the whole list and things like that. So let's take a look at an example here. And to set this up, I think, I heard that there was an incident in the entire cast of Sesame Street is not allowed to fly. I didn't ask questions. I don't know what happened, but let's verify if that's true. But first, let's see if I can fly. My name is Rob, so we're going to pass in Rob here. And remember, this is going to curl inside of the container on port 8001 and then return us a result. So I'm cleared to fly. That's great news. So let's try Elmo. I'm not really feeling good about Elmo. Oh, he's on the no-fly list. Sorry, bud. Not flying today. Let's see. We got another character on... let's do the Count. The Count is another character on Sesame Street. And let's see if the Count is going to fly. Ooh, he's not flying today. Shucks. So as you can see, we're getting our true and our false back from this service. And all along the way, that encrypted list or in plain text now is actually protected, and the government can feel really good about how it's being used. So that forms the basis of how you could use a secure enclave for a sensitive operation. Here we're doing some encryption and decryption, but you could also use this to help protect intellectual property, do machine learning inside of it, really anything that kind of is important to your business or your customer's data, and you want to keep it secure. So again, we looked at Enclaver. You can find out more information at edgebit.io/Enclaver, and then the code is open source on GitHub, and we'd love for you to join our community. Thanks.